right. So we'll start today. Good to see you all, by the way. And we'll start today. I'm going to talk through my thoughts on nutrition and BFR and kind of what I've learned and what I've been researching. I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not necessarily an expert on all the nitty-gritties, but I have been in the fitness industry a long time. I pay attention to nutrition. So I do feel like I have a decent amount of knowledge here to give to you guys. But I also at the end want Q&A, and some of you might have some great ideas too. I know probably many of you on this call have thought a lot about your nutrition as well. So if you have any tips or tricks, we can definitely do some sharing of that. So first thing about nutrition. So, I mean, mostly I want to talk about how nutrition plays in with BFR today, but just to cover like general bases of nutrition. This is where nutrition is kind of simple in its theory, but sometimes harder to execute. But basic principles of nutrition, the more you can reduce sugar, that's probably we all know this, but the most negative calories that we're getting in a day are processed sugar. So eliminating that and simple carbs is going to be your number one kind of tip to just maintaining a healthy body weight. But the big things that I really want to focus today is what to add into our diet. And the two big things, and again, none of this is rocket science, you've all heard this, is getting more veggies, not only for all the nutrition, but the fiber in the vegetables are super important. Fiber, the more and more they learn about fiber, is super critical to gut health, digestion. And if you're eating more protein, fibers are really important complement to that. Peter Attia just put out a podcast talking about, is red meat good for you, bad for you? Is this like theory about can red meat cause cancer? And really what he says, and what a lot of people say, is really it's about the fiber. If you're eating fiber and you have a healthy digestive, it's fine. If all you eat is red meat and dairy and gluten, then yeah, that's probably not a great combination. But so veggies are important from that. The main two principles I want to talk about today is protein, why it's important, how we get it, how much is the right amount, and then also how do we support an elevated metabolism, because that's really the two huge benefits of BFR, is building muscle and increasing our metabolism. So how does our nutrition support that? So probably obvious, but why is protein important? Protein is the building block of our muscles, right? When we work out hard and our muscle breaks down or our muscle gets fatigued, we need protein to rebuild it. Protein is the building block of our muscle. On the flip side of that, if we aren't getting enough protein, or if we aren't getting enough calories, our body will use protein as fuel. So like we'll lose muscle if we're not eating enough. And that's why intermittent fasting is a little bit tricky in terms of how much of that do you want to do, and we'll talk about that. So protein's super important for building muscle. That's the number one reason I think most of us are doing BFR. As women who are aging, muscle's critical to our longevity. The two most important things for our long-term health above anything else, and this is pretty proven, is muscle mass and VO2 max. Those are the two main things we're focused on in this program. So muscle mass is why most of us are in this program. Protein supports that. There's different theories on how much. 1 gram per kind of ideal body weight is a number that's being talked about a lot. So let's say I weigh 135 pounds. I would get 135 grams of protein. Now that's for a lot of us is kind of a lot, right? Sounds like a lot. So a good starting point that I feel like most women, so I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I'd say in the last decade or so, or as things that, talking about the environment and animals and kind of the practices of like mass animal production for meat and just like all those concepts, I know I've gradually eaten less and less and less meat over the last 10 years. Not even super consciously, but just, I'm not going to eat as much. Well, this is a little bit of a dilemma because some of that is true, right? I mean, if you have, there's a lot of vegetarians out there that don't want to eat any meat because of animal rights or caring about animals. But the reality is, as humans, our evolution, we ate a lot of meat as part of our diet. I mean, there weren't grains, there wasn't mass-produced sugar, there wasn't mass-produced dairy. It was meat and plants. And that's basically, so our body is made to eat meat. So it can be a little tricky for people. I had to kind of wrap my head around, okay, how can I get meat that I feel good about? A couple things I've done is I order from online farms that are like small family farms. They're not mass producing the animals. There's good efficacy around the animal care. So that's one way that I feel a little better about the meat I'm eating, both from a health standpoint and from a humanity standpoint or humane standpoint. The other way to get protein is supplementing. And that's another thing I'll talk a lot about. Eating animal products or animal meat, you're going to get more of the amino acids that we need. So I do think it's important to eat some amount of that. Now, if you're just like, no way, I'm 100% vegetarian, and that would be something we want to talk about. You need to get real strategic about your protein, because you're not naturally going to get enough protein. Just bottom line, you will not. So you got to be really strategic about how can you get more protein in your diet if you're not going to eat animal products. So again, that's kind of a personal decision you need to think about. But if you're wanting to optimize your health, having protein is key. So if we start with 1 gram per body weight, let's just go to 100 grams as an easy starting point. The way I break it up in my day is I do four to 5 meals of 20 to 30 grams of protein. 20 to 30 grams is a good size meal. If it's just purely protein, it's 4 grams. It's 4 calories per gram. So if you're eating 25 grams of protein, that's 100 calories. So it's not actually a lot of calories. What's an example? A good sized chicken breast is 30 grams. Think about when you're eating meat, you want lean meat just because you're going to get a higher percentage of protein in that. So chicken, fish, if you're going to eat red meat, which is actually fine, but I would do grass fed, and I would try to get lean. Eggs are great, but the majority of an egg is fat calories, which is not bad. There's a little bit of misnomer about cholesterol and all that, but eggs are a really healthy source of protein and fat, but they're more fat than protein. So if you're eating whole eggs, just remember you're only getting about 4 grams of protein per egg. So I supplement my eggs. I do like a whole egg, and then I do egg whites to boost up the protein values, right? If I'll do a protein shake, easy way to get 20 to 30 grams of protein. And I sneak other things in there. Like sometimes I'll do green powder. Sometimes I'll do creatine, which we're going to talk more about, or if you're doing collagen, anything that you want to add in there to boost up that smoothie, to get a lot of things at once, to make your smoothie kind of this super power packed, protein packed, nutrient packed snack or meal. So those are some ways to get protein. So I would think for all of you who haven't really been tracking your protein, I would start with like 100 grams as a goal and track your protein for a week or two. It can kind of be annoying, but just look at the labels. You can easily Google like how much protein's in a chicken breast, 30 grams, or, you look on the label of your protein and just track how much protein you're getting and see where you're at, and try to boost it up a bit to try to get to at least to that 100 grams. And if you're feeling good and you're feeling like you need to build more muscle, you can even push it above that. But 100 grams, I feel like, is a pretty healthy amount to maintain the muscle we have. The other side of the equation is supporting our metabolism. Intermittent, how many of you have done intermittent fasting or do intermittent fasting? Suzanne, who else? Anyone else? Okay, Margaret, MJ. So there's been a lot, and I have been a proponent of intermittent fasting. I think there's some great things about it. One, from just giving our digestion system a break to recover and not always be bogged down with food in our digestive system. Also, it's a good way to control calories. If you limit how many hours you're eating in a day, just kind of naturally you'll eat less calories. But the big problem, and we talked about this before, the big problem is most of the research around intermittent fasting has been done on men. And as we know, men's bodies, men's metabolisms aren't the same as women's. The biggest difference is, as women, from an evolution standpoint, we're made to carry babies. And if you're pregnant and not getting enough calories, or even if you're trying to get pregnant, super critical to not starve, right? If we're talking about evolution. So if you're not getting enough calories, our body immediately goes into slow down our metabolism. Men's bodies don't do that. We slow down metabolism. The other thing is we start using protein for our fuel source, which is not the direction we want to go in. So if you're going to do intermittent fasting, the windows are shorter than what you see in the research. A lot of the research says 16-hour non-eating window and an 8-hour eating window. That's too long for women. So I would say more like 12 hours, maybe 14. But if you're really trying to be in a phase where you're building muscle, I would shorten it to 12 hours. If you're like maintaining, 14 might be okay. But there's more, like Stacy Sims, who's someone I follow a lot, and I've mentioned her before. She talks a lot about, she doesn't believe in intermittent fasting, but it's kind of semantics, but time restricted eating. It's just the same idea, but it's not really a long fasting window. It's just maintaining your eating in a more controlled amount of time. So I would say 12 hours is a good starting point. If you feel good on 12 and you want to play with 14, but the other thing is, if you're doing fasting, the first meal you eat after you've fasted, even if it's 12 hours, is make sure you get protein. And the last meal, make sure you're getting protein, because in that fasting window, you'll start to use protein as energy if you fast too long. So you want to bookend it with good protein sources. So intermittent fasting, again, keep it short if you're going to do that, because we want to keep our metabolism up and we don't want to be burning our protein for fuel. Okay. So that's the two main reasons. The other thing about timing of eating is we want to make sure, there's a lot of talk about, like, do you work out on an empty stomach, or do you work out, like, do you fuel your workout, or do you kind of like starve your workout, right? There's different theories of thought there, but kind of same principle applies with the intermittent fasting. We don't want to work out on an empty stomach for a couple reasons. We'll burn protein as fuel, and or we're just not going to get the metabolism boost. We're going to be in energy conserving mode. So you don't need to eat a lot. You don't need a big meal. I often will do either a shake, or if I'm in a hurry, I should have brought a picture of it, but I do a 20-gram. I do vegan because whey is not good on my stomach. So for this, I do a vegan 20-gram pre-mixed protein drink. And it's called Orgain, like organic, but it's called Orgain. And there's other ones on there. I get one that's not in a plastic bottle because I don't want to use plastic bottles. It's like a carton, right? And it's 20 grams of protein. And I'll just drink one of those before a workout. It also has some fats and some carbs in it, but it's majority protein. So it's a nice blend of things before a workout. You want some amount of carbs before a workout, because that's going to be your fuel source, especially with BFR. When we're using BFR, we use more glucose in our workout. So we want some amount of glucose stores. Now, most people have enough glycogen in their body, enough glucose, and a lot of women get insulin resistance. There's too much insulin in their body. Why? Because they're not using glucose in their muscles. There's nowhere to put glucose. So the great thing about BFR is we're using glucose. So that means our body has a place to put glucose. So it helps with our insulin levels. But having a little bit of carbs going into a workout so you have energy. After a workout, most critical time to have protein within an hour or so after working out. Why? Because the protein synthesis in our body is turned on, especially with BFR. That's one of the things that BFR does. We release human growth hormone, and another hormone called IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1, that increases our protein synthesis, which means if we eat protein right after we work out, it's immediately going to go into our muscles and help build our muscles. So protein after your BFR workout, key. Could be a shake, could be, your lunch, depending on what time you work out, could be, any type of snack with protein in it. So whether that's, any of the meats we've talked about, shakes we've talked about. Dairy can be good if you tolerate dairy, like cottage cheese is a good source of protein. I don't do great on dairy, so I don't do a lot of that, but you can play with that if that works for you. So make sure you're getting the protein out after workouts. Supplements that I use to support my protein intake. A lot of talk about collagen out there. Collagen is good for skin, bones, all of that, but it doesn't have a full amino acid profile. So what I use instead of collagen is bone broth protein powder. You guys have probably heard about bone broth. There's kind of a big fad of drinking bone broth for a while, and there's a lot of benefits for that, and that's fine and that's great, but that wasn't something I was doing a lot of. So I found a bone broth protein powder that I put in my smoothie. It sounds kind of weird. It doesn't really have much taste. It's unflavored. I'll send links with a couple of things I use. I'm not selling any of this stuff, and I don't have a particular affiliate, just stuff I found that I like. I'll send some links on the Orgain, this protein bone broth powder, but I put it in my smoothie. I use Shakeology as my shake because it has lots of greens and nutrients in it, along with a nice mix of protein and carb. It's kind of got like the same amount of protein and carb, and then I add a little bit more protein into that. So I use the bone broth protein instead of just collagen. Sometimes if you are someone who doesn't eat a lot of protein, animal products, or doesn't do a lot of dairy, you might look into, I have an amino acid supplement I do that's a vegan amino acid supplement, but it's still a full protein. So if you're vegetarian, that would be a great thing to add in, because it's helping you get your full. That's the biggest problem with not eating meat, is you don't get the full amino acids. Even though you can get protein from plant sources, they're not going to have the full amino acid profile that meat does. This is where it gets kind of more in the weeds and confusing, but just animal protein kind of fills out all the amino acids. Plant-based protein does not, so supplementing with amino acids would be good in that case. The last supplement that I want to talk about, it isn't exactly protein, but super good for maintaining muscle, super good for brain health, great for as we age, and it's been one of the most studied supplements that is super safe, is creatine. Have any of you heard of creatine or take creatine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Suzanne, you take it? You do?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Maggie, you take it also?
Yep.
Anyone else taking it? It's one. So do you take it because of building strength, Maggie, or did you do it for brain health, or both?
Both.
Both. Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really been, it used to be thought of. So I took it when I was in my 20s as an athlete. The whole thing was like, if you're working out really hard, it helps you recover and you can, get stronger. And boy, I really got stronger using it at the time. And there was this big thing of like, you got to load and you got to take all this at the beginning. Like you take this high amount and then you trickle down, and people would say, oh, I gained weight, and you will, if you load, you'll feel like you gain weight. It's actually increasing the amount of water inside your cells and inside your muscle cells. So you get puffier, but if you don't do the loading, you avoid that. So if you've ever heard that about creatine, like, ooh, I feel like I'm going to gain weight, don't do the loading protocol. That's not important for people looking for long-term health. That's more elite athlete protocol that really needs to get it up quickly. You just want 4 to 5 grams of creatine a day. You can get it in a powder form. You can get it in a gummy form if that's too many powders, which I get, but I, again, put it a lot of times in my smoothie. 5 grams a day, brain health. And what creatine really does, your ATP system, which is, so our type 2 muscle fibers uses glucose, and our ATP system, which is basically creatine phosphate, to build muscle. As we get older, just like with everything, as we get older, we produce less of that. Our body should naturally be producing creatine and replenishing our ATP system. But as we get older, we produce less of that. So by supplementing with creatine, it helps us have more energy, more muscular energy during our workouts. And it also helps us recover and build muscle faster. And it's amazing for brain health. So I feel like for all my female clients that are over 40 or 50, like, add that in. If you want me to send you some research, I can. Again, I have no kind of nothing I gain from this except so that's what I definitely take it. I recommend my clients to take it. So something for you to explore. Now I know can get overwhelming with all these powders, all these supplements, all these things. So how do you kind of choose what to do? I do bone broth protein powder in my shake. So between that and the Shakeology, so in one shake, I'm getting 30 grams of protein. I do the creatine as an extra. That's for brain health and helping to recover from my workouts and helping build muscle. And then sometimes I do that liquid drink, right? As just, I can put it in my car. It doesn't even need to be refrigerated. I don't have time to make a smoothie. Sometimes I'll just do that. So those are my kind of like not cheats, but like supplements that help me get to my protein goal. And then I try to have a good amount of protein at dinner. So a lean protein. And then if you don't eat a big lunch, sometimes I have a hard time like eating enough protein at lunch, but I'll have a couple snacks. Like I'll have salad with chicken on it or something at lunch, but maybe I won't get the full 30 grams. So then I'll have some kind of snack in the day, whether it's cheese, nuts and cheese have a lot of fat too, but they do have good protein. So my homework for you guys is to track your protein for a week, especially if you aren't, some of you like Suzanne and maybe Maggie sound like they're pretty aware. Maybe you already know the amount of grams you eat, but if you're not sure, track it for a week or so. And then I'll send a link with the different additive supplements that I use specifically around protein, and maybe try to add some of that in to see if you can bump yourself up to the 100 grams. Questions and comments. I know I've talked a lot. There's more we can talk about, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Suzanne, what do you have to add, or what are your thoughts? Because it sounds like you're pretty, and I know you work with Dr. Ando, which, and you guys are tracking this stuff. So what are anything I missed or anything that you really like in what I said, or what do you?
Oh, I like that you reinforce the creatine. I take it and I psychologically am like, I'm getting huge. I'm swole. I keep doing it, so I like being reinforced on it. And then I was gonna ask, I take like perfect aminos.
Yeah.
Something this has nothing to do with what you said. I definitely struggle with forcing myself to eat breakfast, and I've been trying to do that before my workouts. And I'm still having a hard time with that. But I guess I like the idea of a shake. But could you take like perfect aminos before your workout? Like, would you count that as having?
Question, because I know aminos don't have calories the same amount the protein, so I don't know how that relates to fuel for your workout. It's probably better than nothing, but it's probably not quite the same. What I do in the morning, if I'm going to work out in the morning, I'll sometimes do that little drink I'm talking about, that Orgain that's pre-mixed. It's like 140 calories or something, and it's just pure liquid. It's not even a smoothie, right? It's just pure like it's milk or chocolate milk, kind of as a chocolate. So sometimes I'll just drink that. It's really easy to digest. So that's kind of like, at least I have something. So maybe if you're a morning workout person and you just don't like the feeling of eating right away, try that. Or making a smoothie. I would say those are probably the easiest. The more liquid it is, the easier it is going to be to digest, and the less it's going to feel like it's sitting in your stomach. So
I'm guilty of also drinking the coffee first thing in the morning. And I know, I'm sure everybody probably, but I'm realizing how much it is affecting probably my cortisol, and empty stomach, fasted stomach, like you should get some food in there. And I just wish there was an easy way to do it, so I could just have my coffee.
sometimes I put a little protein powder in my coffee.
Does that count? And then it's not an empty stomach?
And then it's at least you're getting, and then sometimes I'll put like MCT oil or something in my coffee. And if I really mix it good, it's nice and creamy. And that definitely helps, because it's giving you protein and fats that slow down. You're not going to get quite the cortisol spike. But I know some people, it's like their coffee's sacred. They don't want to mess with it and put stuff in it. So if you don't want to put that kind of stuff in your coffee, then eating something on the side or drinking something on the side that contains some amount of protein, healthy carbs. Another trick in the morning, and this is more food based, but I know a lot of people are like, I'm not going to eat eggs before I work out. That's just kind of weird. So you can do like a small amount of oatmeal, with maybe some fruits and blueberries, and then mix protein powder in that, or even sometimes I'll put egg whites in my oatmeal when I cook it, and you can't even really taste it. You mix it in, and that's a way to get healthy carbs, because oatmeal is kind of a nice whole grain, with some protein before you work out. And just the thing with that is you don't need to eat a huge quantity, right? We're just talking 150 calories or something. So a small serving of that. But that's the key. That's the, some of this stuff conceptually is not difficult, but the hard part I feel is like figuring out what works for you and those go-to things. That can be the tricky part. So exactly what Suzanne's talking about is like, I know I should do this, but how do I do it? And I don't want to, doesn't sound good. And so figuring out what works for you. Is it a drink? Is it a shake? Is it, piece of toast with an egg on it, which is probably not not right before you're going to work out. That would be more like if you're going to work out in an hour or two. What other questions?
Do most people use an app to track their food and protein, like MyFitnessPal, or I'm just curious?
Yeah, that's a good question. What do people, does anyone else track on an app? I know they have great ones now, make it so easy. You use MyFitnessPal, Suzanne, or something else?
Yeah, MyFitnessPal.
Yeah, that's probably as good of any. And those are good because they have like, the food already, yes, they'll have label, you can scan the label. That's when you can scan the label, right? Even if you have, now obviously if you're eating whole foods, there's not always gonna be a label, but that's what I always think is funny about that. Like,
It does tell you though, if you've got enough protein.
yeah. Yeah. Good. Maybe that should be a group assignment. We all use MyFitnessPal for a week and then we can compare notes. Chris, you have any questions? I see you taking some good notes there. Is this?
No, this is super helpful because it's funny. I never eat before working out because I just don't want to. It doesn't feel good. And I even make coffee my reward. I don't have coffee before I work out. So as soon as I come in from our workouts or whatever in the gym, then coffee's my first go-to. Clearly I'm doing it all wrong. So I've learned a lot. But I will probably try that Orgain because I do not like to have anything in the morning. I struggle to have breakfast. I try to do like cottage cheese and a boiled egg or, some avocado after I work out, but it's a struggle for me. I don't get hungry for a while.
Yeah.
Drink my coffee and lose track of time and it's 12:30 and I haven't had any food. So gotta shift it for sure.
Yeah. I know you're not you're not alone in that. I think morning eating is not that's why intermittent fasting is so easy for some people. It's like, great, I don't want to eat in the morning anyway. I'll just start eating at noon, but it is tricky if we're not, and especially if we're working out in the morning and not eating, like we're definitely going into like our body's going, wait a minute, we're not getting the fuel we need. Let's slow down and let's, so we want to fuel our body. So again, it doesn't have to be big meals. It's like 150 calories before anywhere between an hour before your workout and around the same within an hour after. So that's 300 calories in a 2-hour or 3-hour period with a workout in there. So it's not a big meal necessarily. So the meals can be more spread out. The meals can be later. Because I know after you work out, especially if it's a hard workout, like you're not going to be super hungry, but having some kind of recovery drink, I think is a good strategy for that. Alan, what about you? Any questions, any thoughts?
Oh, this is probably an area where I have the greatest number of questions. I'm looking at everybody here. I can tell I'm a lot older than you and
I'm probably the oldest.
my whole metabolism is really shifted in a way that I am not clear about how to track. And this has been, using BFR has changed a lot of how my body's operating, but I haven't quite gotten into, okay, now how do I kind of support and sustain that? So this is extremely helpful for me. It's probably going to take me a while to figure out what's going to be workable for me because I end up eating a lot less than I ever have in my life. And it doesn't seem to critically impact my workouts, but it's obviously not great for my body. So
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like we're not necessarily talking about eating before workout to make your workout better. That there's that concept too. And especially, I mean, if you like endurance athletes who ride nutrition's a huge thing for them to keep their energy up and all that. I'm talking more from a metabolism standpoint and a muscle building and sustaining standpoint,
Right.
right?
Which is really what I'm worried about, not endurance athletics.
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a good point to bring up though, that this is not so much about like I feel fine in my workout, so I don't really need to eat. It's like,
Right.
it's not exactly the point. And you know what? The other thing is like, don't worry about being perfect. I know that can be a hard trap sometimes, but just try to improve. Like if there's some eye-opening things today, like I don't do any of that, don't try to do all of it. But like I would say the number one thing, make sure you eat protein after your workout. That's
Yeah.
gonna be something to hit, because that's gonna help fuel and repair the muscles and take advantage of the protein synthesis that the BFR just turned on in your body. And
Yeah.
if you don't fuel that, you're kind of losing that benefit, or that benefit's getting minimized. So I would say that's maybe like the first step for you, Alan. If it's like too many things to think about, focus on that. And then I would focus on, do you do like a fasting window, Alan, whether it's on purpose or an accident?
I haven't eaten breakfast and I don't know how long. I just don't. It's kind of,
Yeah.
I can't imagine stuff hitting my stomach
So when do you first eat typically?
at lunchtime. At lunchtime.
Okay. So you
So
eat, when's the last time you eat at night? Like 8?
dinner. Yeah, every
7.
once in a while I have something after dinner, but not very often. So it's
Okay.
pretty
So
long
you're in
period
a
of
pretty
time.
long fasting window. So I would
I can change.
work on trying to get even a little bit, like if it's this Orgain thing I'm talking about, or a little shake, or some just to interrupt that fast
Yeah.
and let your body have some fuel, and make sure there's protein in that, because again, those long fasting periods are when we start using protein. And there's some information out there now where they say protein is the most important thing to eat first thing in the morning. And now I don't want to eat protein in the morning, like right when I wake up. That doesn't sound very good, but drinking it is
Yeah, that might be a way to make that
Yeah.
that work.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so that's
again,
a couple
find
things
little
I
ways
can,
that you can kind of work towards, okay, how do I make sure I don't have too long of a fasting window? How to make sure I'm getting enough protein during the day? How do I make sure I'm fueling my workout before and after? But I would say even more, maybe especially after. if
Yeah.
But if you're fasted overnight and then going into a workout, I feel
Yeah.
like trying to have something just so our body's burning that and not burning the reserves of muscle.
great.
Yeah.
You're very helpful.
MJ.
This MJ?
Oh, that's right. We got 2 MJs on here. No, MJ Elmore. I call you Maggie, so that's yeah.
Sorry, it's a little noisy over where I'm, so I muted, but no, this was helpful. I've been hearing a lot about the 100 grams of protein and trying a few things, but I definitely would love the list of products that you mentioned specifically. Cottage cheese has been a good one for me because it really does have a lot more protein than either yogurt and a lot of other things you could have in the morning.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't have a much of it because, like I said, I don't love dairy. But you're right. Of all the dairy products out there, cottage cheese has. If you didn't know this, cottage cheese has by far the most protein.
Yeah,
So,
and if you put berries on it and if some sliced almonds, it's not really, it's a pretty good breakfast.
yeah.
But yeah, my daughter who's really into it, the protein gave me some great bone broth. It makes a soup that you could drink as a snack, and it had a lot of grams of protein in it. I can't remember what it was right now, but
Is it something that comes in like a carton or something?
a
Like
little jar. I maybe I'll find it real quick. Let's see.
okay.
A minute real quick.
Yeah, that's a good tip too, is like some people as a soup, or do you have it as a snack typically? Just
Yeah, it says 24 karat chicken bone broth, collagen plus savory veggie blend. It has, well, it's got 80 calories and 12 grams of protein. So I guess it's not a bad snack.
Yeah. What are the other calories? Is it more fat or more carbs?
It's a 0 fat, 1 gram of sugar, 8 grams of carbs,
Okay.
12 grams of protein.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I have, as I myself was paying more attention to my protein intake, because like I said, I realized over the last 10 years, I was gradually eating less and less protein, and I lost a lot of muscle, and I know that's partly why. So as I started paying attention, it's really when you look at labels, the ratio of protein, carbs, and fat, because
Yeah.
something might have protein in it, but it has more carbs and more fat than protein. So like people say like, oh, almonds have protein. Well, yeah, they do, but they have a lot more fat. So that's fine. Healthy fats is also good. But if you're trying to boost up your protein, it's good to find things that are highest in protein with lower amounts of the carbs and fats to get that increase. So it's good to look at labels just to learn that stuff. But that's a great tip, both the bone broth and the cottage cheese.
Okay, I'm gonna share this one.
Okay.
I don't know, it's not amazing. It's a little texture weird, but I've been trying to force myself to eat it. It's strawberry chia cottage cheese. It has 16 grams of protein. I don't know what all else is in it. 5 grams of fat, 10 grams of carbs.
Okay.
But it's kind of like something I can choke down when I need to eat. I guess I
Cheryl.
guess I'll eat it now since I haven't had any food.
Yeah, there you go. See, good. Cheryl, thoughts, questions, comments?
Natalie, great information. Yeah, I would say that my biggest takeaway from today is because I'm really religious about my protein shake, like right after I work out. So adding some of the supplements like the collagen, maybe the bone broth powder. I'm pretty inspired about is it creatine?
Creatine.
Yeah, my opportunity as well is putting something in my gut before I work out. Because I just ride the caffeine train and then you know what I mean? And it's just kind of worked for me, but the whole thing about BFR, which continues to kind of impact my life, is like I want to also be really curious, and just try some different things and just see if I feel different or perform different. So I think that
A great attitude. I love that, because sometimes making change, we all have such a, everyone has their own unique relationship with their body, and there's a lot of sometimes history and emotion and whatever. And so making a change can be more than just the habit. It can be like psychologically, like, what's this going to do to my body? And am I going to gain weight? Am I going to,
Right.
not perform as well? Am I going to, whatever it is, but just all this stuff is just experimentation that can be undone, right? So do something for a week, see how you feel. If you don't like it, stop and try something else. So I do think, I have a history of having definite issues with food when I was younger. And I used to have a lot of fear around eating and what to eat. But I've realized now, and honestly, I mean, part of that I've just gotten, as I've got older, I've kind of processed through that stuff. But I felt that way about BFR. Like, it makes me feel like so much more in control of my body that I feel more confident about experimenting. 'Cause I
Yeah.
feel like I have this great tool that's like, I can just make changes more easily if I need to. And so I don't know if that's helpful to people or not, but just
that's very cool. I do have a question, just in listening to you talk about like routines and rituals and stuff. And I know that I am that creature of habit, and especially with diet. Maybe it's a control thing, I don't know, but finding like what my snacks are, and I do 2 eggs a day, or I might replace that with tuna salad if I make a big, serving of that for the week. Almonds and cheese in the afternoon. So I have like a lot of same, and then my dinner is more where I get more diversity. But is it true that diversity in a diet is good, or that finding what your body really likes and just going to what your rituals are? I've kind of heard 2 different things.
that's a really good question. I would say you need to find the rituals that work. I think that is really important for consistency, but a certain amount of diversity, especially you want diversity in like vegetables and nutrients, because that's where we get what you want the diversity in. The protein diversity, I'm not sure how much that matters, but nutrient diversity is what matters more, right? So that's more getting more from our vegetables and fruits. I'm a little bit like you, Cheryl. I find the things that work for me and I kind of stick with them, but I try to do more variety at dinner, or I'll throw in, I try to have more vegetables at lunch, even though I don't necessarily like feel like it sometimes, and just whether it's a salad or whether I make a bunch of vegetables for the week and then just
Yeah.
add them in. That's been a good trick for me to get a little, I mean, also raw vegetables are good, but to get more variety of vegetables, there's some vegetables I'm just not going to eat raw. So I cook a bunch of them and use that throughout the week. I love your idea of the tuna salad and just having that ready for the week. Those are some good tips. But yeah, I think it's a balance between ritual and some amount of diversity. So I would say focus on the rituals first to
Mhm.
get in the foundation of what you need, and then play with the diversity where you can, right? Because if you're just all over the map playing with diversity, it's hard to know how much am I really getting in a day and how much, and also just psychologically, depending on the kind of person you are. Maybe I'm saying that because I particularly am better with ritual too, to just have like my go-tos. So anyone else have thoughts on that? Because I'm not sure I have the expert answer on that.
That helps me to eat, because otherwise, if I have to think it up, then I just don't do it. You know,
Right.
it's too
Yeah.
much trouble. I'm just not messing with this. So it really helps me a
Yeah.
lot.
That's why meal planning is so good for me. Sometimes on a Sunday, I'll just pull all the vegetables and all the fruits and just cut everything up and get everything done so that I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
There's another guy that I've studied a little bit. I think his name is Mark Hyman. He's a nutritionist. He's got this thing called farmer's juice, and they take all the fruits and vegetables that are like weird shapes and whatever that they don't sell, and he makes this juice. But I've always heard juice is not great because it takes all the fiber and all the stuff like out of it in a different way. So is it good to drink like vegetable juice? Because to get veggies at lunch, I never get veggies at lunch unless I'm just eating a salad and throw something on it, because it's not an easy thing to kind of make quickly. So what do you
Right.
think about juice?
So green juice, as long as there's not a lot of sugar, you're not using a lot of fruit juice or any fruit juice. Green juice is healthy for you from a nutrient standpoint. Now, it does take all the fiber out, so that can't be all of your vegetables for the day, because we still need to get the fiber in somewhere. But as a quick way to get some good dense nutrients in there, I think green juice can be a good strategy, but just be mindful of the fiber. I used to do green juice like every day and I loved it. It would make me feel great, help my digestion. I've gotten out of the habit. And I also know how I want to make sure I get enough fiber. So, but man, if I made a smoothie out of all those vegetables, there's no way I'd drink it. I'd be like choking it down. So I don't know. I don't know. I have the same struggles as you guys, like finding what works and then what's optimal.
Actually, is there a specific, the most foreign one for me is a creatine. Is there a specific product you'd recommend? And are you saying 5 grams would be your recommendation?
5 grams is kind of the general recommendation, just daily. I've even heard 3 to 5 grams. So, you can play with the amount, see how you feel. I take 5 and I don't feel, I don't notice necessarily I'm taking it, but I know like Suzanne said, maybe she feels like she feels the bulk a little bit. So I don't know, maybe play with that, but 5 grams is the typical recommendation.
And is it in a particular product or?
Yeah, I can send you, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll send you in a link what one I use. I just kind of Googled, they have those different lists of like best things and why. And those are always hard because who knows who's motivated to sell what. But I've kind of cross-referenced some. There's a couple brands that I think are pretty good. You want to get things, typically when you're getting supplements, you want to get things that are third-party tested, because supplements aren't regulated and, companies can kind of claim whatever they want. So most of the reputable products out there are third-party tested because people know to look for that now, but that's just something to think about. But yeah, I'll send a list of all the stuff I use: the bone broth protein, the creatine, the amino acids, and the Orgain drink. Those are the 4 things I'll send.
And you put the creatine in a shake or something, or?
Sometimes I put it in my shake. Sometimes I just put it in water. Because you don't actually, the one I use has no taste at all. I can't even tell it's in there once I shake it up.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do, the other thing I do sometimes is electrolytes, like, I'll just do H2RS that we have at Evolution. I'll put electrolytes and creatine in together and just like drink a big thing of water. So I'm getting some good liquid. That's the one thing about all these powders. Sometimes I struggle with drinking enough water, but if I'm having to drink all this stuff, it kind of forces me like, okay, I better drink that big thing.
Yeah.
So
Hey, I have to dash, but thank you. This has been great.
you're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Kim, I didn't get to you yet. You have any thoughts to share?
I think that what I want to say is relax about this. I really appreciate that you said, take the perfection out of it. We're all individuals. We try to put our puzzle pieces together.
Totally.
And one thing at a time. And it also is what's going on with your immune system, your sensitivity to things. Like I'm having my ginger turmeric tea this morning, and I'm doing a study with that, and it's not working for me. So now I go into my little toolbox and pick something else. I used to love putting blueberries in my oatmeal. Can't do that right now. So if anybody is dabbling in HRT, hormone replacement therapy, that, we're riding the wave all the time. So be kind to yourself, and
Totally. I
you
love
all
that.
are amazing humans.
I love that. Yeah. Don't be perfectionistic, but try to recognize where maybe you're not helping yourself and see if we can fill those gaps a little bit with realistic solutions. I agree with that, Kim. It's got to be realistic. It's got to feel like it is a fit. And it is. That's where nutrition becomes difficult, right? It's like everybody's individual, and what works for one person doesn't work for another person. So kind of playing with this stuff with the experimental, curious mindset, like Cheryl said. And then when you find things that work, I think creating some kind of routine is a good strategy just from a habit standpoint. But yeah, thanks, Kim. That was a good comment. Awesome. Well, this was fun. It was fun having so many people on today, and I love all the comments and chat and a little bit of community, getting to know each other. That's fun. Any final comments before we close out for the day?
So cool, Sally. Thank you.
Very helpful.
Send us
Very
your best.
helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the feedback. And I'll do these at least once a month, different topics that come up. If you have anything you want to talk about, feel free to let me know, and I'll do some research, or we can co-present it. So I'm certainly not an expert in everything, but this has been great because it makes me learn more. I'm like, oh, I better know what I'm talking about. I gotta research this stuff.
Awesome as
Anyway,
always, Ash.
you guys are amazing. Love seeing
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Sally.
Thanks.
Great
Bye.
day.
Have a great
Bye.
day, guys.